The benevolent arrival. The day the sky changed. The morning of March 15th started like any other Tuesday across the globe. Coffee shops opened their doors in New York, commuters hurried through Tokyo's subway stations, and farmers in rural Kansas checked their crops under the dawn sky. Then, at exactly 11:47 GMT, everything changed forever. Ships appeared above every major city on Earth. Not the small, saucer-shaped vessels of old science fiction movies, but massive structures that stretched across entire city blocks. They hung motionless in the air, their crystalline surfaces reflecting sunlight in patterns that hurt to look at directly. The ships made no sound, cast no shadows despite their enormous size, and seemed to bend the very air around them. Dr. Elena Vasquez was in her laboratory at the International Space Research Center when the first reports came in. As Earth's leading xenobiologist, she had spent 15 years studying the possibility of alien life. She had imagined first contact countless times, but never like this. Never so sudden, so overwhelming, so perfectly coordinated across the entire planet. Her hands trembled as she watched live feeds from around the world. London, Paris, Beijing, Mumbai, Sao Paulo, Lagos. Every major population center now had a visitor. The ships were identical in design but varied in size, each one perfectly positioned to be visible to the maximum number of people below. General Marcus Chen stood in the Pentagon's Crisis Command Center, his weathered face calm despite the chaos erupting around him. 30 years of military service had taught him to stay focused when others panicked. While junior officers shouted reports and analysts frantically typed at their keyboards, Chen studied the tactical displays with the careful attention of a man who had survived 3 wars. The alien ships showed no signs of aggression. No weapons were visible, no threatening movements had been detected, but their positioning bothered him. Each ship hovered at the exact altitude to avoid Earth's air defense systems while remaining visible to ground observers. It was either an incredible coincidence or a demonstration of thorough intelligence gathering. The voice from above. At exactly 2:00 p.m. GMT, every communication device on Earth activated simultaneously. Television screens, radio speakers, cell phones, emergency broadcast systems, even old analog radios that had been silent for years suddenly hummed to life with the same message. The voice that emerged was beautiful, musical in quality, speaking in perfect English before seamlessly transitioning to Mandarin, then Spanish, then Arabic, cycling through every known human language with flawless pronunciation and cultural nuance. "People of Earth," the voice began, carrying a warmth that seemed to wrap around each listener like a gentle embrace. "We are the Altrurian Collective, and we come to you in your hour of greatest need." President Sarah Mitchell sat in the Oval Office, flanked by her Security Council, listening to the broadcast with the same expression she wore during budget meetings. Her ability to maintain composure under pressure had made her one of the most respected leaders in recent history, but inside, her mind raced through implications and possibilities. The voice continued. "For 3,000 years, we have served as guardians of peace in this galaxy. We have protected countless civilizations from threats they could not face alone. Today, we extend this same protection to your young and vibrant world." Dr. Vasquez leaned forward in her chair, studying not just the words but the patterns of speech. The message was too perfect, too precisely crafted to appeal to human emotions. Every phrase seemed designed to trigger specific psychological responses: protection, safety, belonging, purpose. "A terrible danger approaches your system," the voice explained, and suddenly the screens filled with images that made viewers gasp in horror. Massive ships with jagged, organic designs moved through space like living predators. Creatures with too many eyes and claws that could slice through metal demonstrated their hunting techniques on holographic prey. "These are the Devourers," the voice continued, as the horrific images played across every screen on Earth. "They consume entire civilizations, absorbing their knowledge, their culture, their very essence. They have destroyed 47 worlds in the past millennium, and now they turn their attention to Earth. General Chen's jaw tightened as he watched the tactical analysis of the enemy ships. The designs were efficient for hit-and-run tactics, built for speed and devastation rather than prolonged engagement. If these devourers were real, Earth's current defenses would last perhaps 6 hours against a determined assault. But something nagged at him. The enemy ships in the footage moved in predictable patterns, their weapon systems were clearly visible, and their tactics seemed almost primitive despite their advanced technology. It was as if someone had designed the perfect enemy to frighten a technologically developing species into seeking protection. The generous offer, the horrifying images faded, replaced by scenes of peaceful planets under crystalline domes of protection. Beautiful cities thrived under alien guardianship, their inhabitants living in apparent harmony and prosperity. We do not ask for worship or tribute, the Alturian voice continued. We seek only to preserve the beauty and diversity that makes each species unique. Your music, your art, your remarkable capacity for innovation and growth. These gifts deserve protection from those who would destroy them. High Counselor Thyron materialized in the United Nations General Assembly Hall as world leaders gathered for an emergency session. The Alturian stood nearly 9 feet tall, with silver skin that seemed to glow with its own inner light. 4 arms moved with fluid grace, and large, kind eyes surveyed the assembled humans with what appeared to be genuine compassion. The alien's presence was overwhelming, not through intimidation, but through an almost angelic beauty that made it difficult to look away. When Thyron spoke, the voice was the same one that had addressed the world, carrying harmonics that resonated in ways human voices never could. Your world stands at a crossroads, Thyron explained to the silent assembly. The Devourers have already entered your solar system's outer reaches. Our deep space sensors detect their scout ships beyond your outermost planet. They will arrive within 1 solar rotation of your world. Dr. Vasquez watched the alien's presentation from the gallery, studying micro-expressions and body language. Despite Thyron's words of urgency, there was no tension in the alien's posture, no signs of genuine concern or fear. The Alturian spoke of impending doom, with the same calm demeanor one might use to discuss the weather. The choice before you is simple, Thyron continued. Join the Galactic Protection Alliance and live in safety, or face the Devourers alone and share the fate of the 47 worlds that came before you. The term seemed remarkably generous. Earth would maintain complete internal autonomy. Humans could govern themselves, practice any religion, create any art they desired. The only requirements were the surrender of all military spacecraft to Alturian oversight and the acceptance of guidance on interstellar matters. Think of us as elder siblings, Thyron said with what might have been a smile. We will handle the dangerous work of galactic defense while you focus on what your species does best: creativity, exploration, and peaceful development. Many world leaders seemed ready to sign immediately. The German chancellor whispered excitedly to her aide about the technological advances they might gain. The Japanese prime minister nodded thoughtfully as Thyron described the collective's vast trading networks. Even typically cautious leaders appeared convinced by the alien's presentation. But General Chen noticed what others missed. The alien described Earth's weapons as primitive tools suitable for planetary conflicts, without asking about their actual capabilities. Thyron spoke of humanity's charming space program, without inquiring about current projects or classified developments. Most telling of all, when asked about human military potential, the Alturian had dismissed it entirely. Your species evolved from hunters, yes, Thyron had said, but you have transcended such crude instincts. You lack the temperament for true interstellar warfare. This is not weakness. It is evolution beyond the need for violence. The watching eyes, Dr. Vasquez found herself studying Thyron's biology more carefully than his words. The Alturian's movements were too precise, too calculated. lauded for a being supposedly driven by compassion. Despite speaking of peace and protection, Thyron moved like a predator assessing prey. The alien's large eyes constantly scanned the room, tracking movement and identifying potential threats. 4 arms never remained still, always shifting in patterns that seemed designed to distract observers from focusing too intently on any single detail. This was not the behavior of a peaceful diplomat. President Mitchell maintained her poker face throughout the presentation, but her mind cataloged every detail. The aliens had arrived with perfect timing, just as Earth's space technology reached a critical threshold. They knew exactly which languages to speak, which emotional appeals to make, which fears to exploit. Either they had been studying humanity for decades, or this scenario had played out before with other species. The presentation lasted 3 hours. By the end, Thyron had painted a vivid picture of impending doom and miraculous salvation. The terrible devourers were coming to destroy Earth, but the benevolent Altrurians would protect humanity in exchange for joining their peaceful alliance. "We will return in 48 of your hours for your answer," Thyron concluded. "Use this time to consider our offer carefully. The devourers cannot be delayed much longer. The choice is protection or destruction. There is no third option." As Thyron vanished in the same shimmer of light that had brought the alien to Earth, the assembly hall erupted in excited conversation. Most delegates seemed thrilled by the opportunity to join an advanced galactic civilization. They spoke eagerly of the wonders they might see, the knowledge they might gain. The human response. President Mitchell stood slowly as the assembly quieted. Her voice carried clearly through the hall without amplification, each word carefully chosen and delivered with the confidence that had made her one of the most respected leaders in global politics. "High Counselor Thyron," she said, looking directly at the spot where the alien had stood moments before, knowing the Altrurians were still monitoring every word. "Your offer is indeed generous, and we appreciate your concern for our world's safety." She paused, her lips curving into a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. The expression was pleasant, diplomatic, but somehow unsettling in its complete lack of fear or desperation. "We will certainly consider your proposal carefully," Mitchell continued. "However, I'm curious about something. You've been watching us for some time, haven't you? Long enough to learn our languages, our customs, our fears, long enough to know exactly what to say to make us grateful for your protection." General Chen felt his pulse quicken. The president was walking a dangerous line, but her tone remained perfectly polite, almost conversational. "In 48 hours, we will have our answer for you," Mitchell concluded, her smile never wavering. "We humans do so love surprises, don't we? I think you'll find our response quite interesting." As the assembly dispersed and world leaders began their urgent consultations, Dr. Vasquez caught General Chen's eye across the crowded hall. Both had seen the same things, noticed the same inconsistencies, reached the same troubling conclusions. The Altrurians had made one critical error in their diplomatic approach. They had assumed that humanity's greatest weakness was fear, that Earth's people would be so grateful for salvation that they wouldn't ask difficult questions. They had never considered that humans might smile politely while planning something entirely different. High above the Earth, in the crystalline ships that hung motionless over every major city, Altrurian analysts reviewed the footage of President Mitchell's response. Something in the human leader's expression troubled them, a confidence that seemed entirely inappropriate for a species facing extinction. But surely, they reasoned, these primitive humans couldn't pose any real threat. After all, Earth's weapons were basic chemical explosives and simple nuclear devices. Their spacecraft moved at laughably slow speeds. Their military thinking was linear and predictable. The Altrurians had absorbed 47 civilizations using exactly this approach. Fear of external threats, generous offers of protection, gradual integration into the collective. It had worked perfectly every time. Surely these humans would be no different. The human response, the 48-hour countdown, While the world's media buzzed with excitement about humanity's impending entry into galactic civilization, a very different kind of meeting was taking place 300 feet beneath the Colorado Rocky Mountains. The Cheyenne Mountain Complex, officially decommissioned decades ago, hummed with activity as Earth's most classified personnel gathered in chambers that didn't exist on any official blueprint. Dr. Elena Vasquez descended through layers of security that would have impressed the most paranoid intelligence agency. Biometric scanners, quantum encryption keys, and finally a DNA analyzer that required a blood sample before the final blast doors would open. She had been studying alien life for 15 years, but the last 48 hours had taught her more about human nature than a lifetime of academic research. General Marcus Chen was already present when the doors sealed behind her. The war room looked like something from a science fiction movie, with holographic displays showing real-time positions of every Altrurian ship in the solar system. Banks of quantum computers processed data streams that most Earth governments didn't know existed. "Dr. Vasquez," Chen said, without looking away from the tactical displays. "I trust you've had time to analyze our visitors more thoroughly?" She set down a briefcase containing biological samples and sensor readings that officially didn't exist. Their cellular structure shows signs of extensive genetic modification going back thousands of generations. They're not a naturally evolved species anymore, General. They're a collective organism that's been absorbing the genetic diversity of other civilizations to maintain their own biological stability. President Mitchell entered the chamber, flanked by individuals whose faces Elena recognized from classified briefings she wasn't supposed to have access to. Admiral Rebecca Santos, head of the Shadow Fleet; Dr. James Park, director of the Prometheus Project; Colonel Zhang Wei, tactical commander of the Void Wolves Special Operations Unit. "Ma'am," Chen said, as Mitchell took her seat at the central console, "Oracle has finished analyzing the Altrurian communications. The results confirm our suspicions." Oracle's synthesized voice filled the chamber, carrying harmonics that somehow conveyed both vast intelligence and subtle amusement. Earth's first truly sentient artificial intelligence had been online for only 6 months, but its analytical capabilities exceeded human understanding. "Analysis complete," Oracle announced. "Altrurian communication patterns show deceptive intent probability of 94%. Cross-referencing historical galactic communications reveals pattern matches with PR. Evious devourer incidents across 47 star systems. Conclusion: the Altrurians are the devourers they claim to protect against." The silence that followed was not one of shock but of confirmation. Elena realized that everyone in this room had already suspected the truth. The question wasn't whether the Altrurians were lying, but what humanity intended to do about it. The hidden truth. Admiral Santos activated a holographic display showing the outer solar system. What appeared to be empty space suddenly filled with thousands of tiny objects moving in complex patterns around Jupiter and Saturn. "Project Shadow Wall has been operational for 8 months, Santos explained. Cloaked monitoring stations throughout the solar system, quantum-entangled communication networks, and deep space early warning systems. We detected the first Altrurian scout ships 11 months ago." Elena stared at the display in amazement. "You've been watching them watch us?" "Better than that," Dr. Park said, bringing up another set of displays. "We've been feeding them exactly the information we wanted them to have. Every primitive weapon test they observed, every simple spacecraft launch they monitored, every basic communication they intercepted was carefully crafted theater." Colonel Zhang took over the briefing, his scarred face showing the hint of a predatory smile. "The Void Wolves have been conducting training exercises that look like disaster preparedness drills. What the Altrurians don't know is that we've been practicing counterboarding operations against ships with exactly their specifications." The pieces clicked together in Elena's mind like a puzzle she hadn't realized she was solving. "How long have you known about them?" President Mitchell leaned back in her chair, her diplomatic composure replaced by something far more dangerous. "Dr. Vasquez, What would you say if I told you that humanity's greatest strength has always been our ability to appear weak while preparing for war? Another display activated, showing the hidden construction bays on the far side of the moon. Elena gasped as she saw ships unlike anything in Earth's official space program, sleek vessels that seemed to bend light around them, powered by energy sources she couldn't identify. The Manhattan Project, the Apollo program, the Internet, Mitchell continued. Humanity's greatest achievements have always come from secret projects that the world didn't know existed until they changed everything. Project Exodus is simply our latest example. Dr. Park gestured to technical readouts that made Elena's head spin. Quantum fold drives that make Altrurian propulsion look like steam engines. Dimensional pocket weapons that can store entire arsenals in spaces smaller than a briefcase. And defensive systems that turn their energy weapons into harmless light shows. The demonstration. Oracle's voice carried a note of what could only be described as satisfaction. All Altrurian vessels are currently monitoring this facility. They believe they are observing a primitive command bunker with basic communication equipment. They are unaware that their own sensor readings are being manipulated by quantum field generators. Chen brought up a tactical display showing the positions of every Altrurian ship worldwide. In approximately 6 hours, High Counselor Thyron will return for humanity's answer. We've prepared a response I think they'll find educational. Elena watched as the displays showed preparation for something that looked less like a diplomatic meeting and more like the most elaborate military operation in human history. What exactly are you planning to do? President Mitchell's smile was the same diplomatic expression she had worn in the UN Assembly, but now Elena could see the steel beneath it. We're going to do what humans have always done when someone threatens our home. We're going to show them why that was a mistake. The next 6 hours passed in a blur of final preparations. Elena found herself assigned to the biological analysis team, tasked with monitoring Altrurian physiological responses during what the briefing documents euphemistically called the revelation event. As she worked, she began to understand the true scope of what humanity had accomplished in secret. The Prometheus Project had not just developed advanced technology, it had created an entirely hidden civilization. Hidden cities beneath Earth's oceans, concealed research facilities on asteroids, camouflaged shipyards throughout the solar system. Humanity had been preparing for this moment since the first Altrurian scout ship crossed into the solar system. Every aspect of Earth's response had been planned, practiced, and refined. The Altrurians thought they were dealing with a primitive species that would be grateful for protection. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The moment of truth. High Counselor Thyron materialized in the UN General Assembly Hall at exactly the promised time, his silver skin glowing with confidence. The same world leaders were present, wearing the same expressions of hopeful expectation. Everything appeared exactly as the Altrurian expected. People of Earth, Thyron began, his musical voice carrying the same warm compassion as before. Have you considered our generous offer of protection? President Mitchell stood slowly, her movements measured and deliberate. High Counselor Thyron, we have indeed considered your offer very carefully. In fact, we've spent considerable time studying your species, your history, and your methods. Something in her tone made the Altrurian pause. The large, kind eyes narrowed slightly as Thyron reassessed the human leader's body language. We've learned quite a lot in the past 48 hours, Mitchell continued, her diplomatic smile never wavering. For instance, we've discovered that the devourers you warned us about are actually yourselves. Quite clever, really. Frighten a species with tales of terrible enemies, then offer protection in exchange for surrender. Thyron's silver skin flickered, the glow dimming as shock registered across alien features. I'm afraid there has been some misunderstanding. Oh, there's been no misunderstanding, Mitchell interrupted gently. We know about the 47 civilizations you've absorbed. We know about your genetic modification programs. We know about the scout ships you've had monitoring our solar system for almost a year. Elena watched from the gallery as Thyron's four arms began moving in agitated patterns. The alien's calm demeanor was cracking, revealing something far more predatory underneath the compassionate facade. "Your primitive sensors could not possibly," Thyron began, but Mitchell raised a hand for silence. "Primitive?" The president's smile widened. "High Counselor, I think it's time we showed you just how primitive we really are." The revelation. Every screen in the assembly hall flickered to life, showing real-time feeds from throughout the solar system. The Altrurian ships, previously hidden from human sensors, appeared in perfect detail on the displays, but they were no longer alone. Surrounding each Altrurian vessel were human ships that seemed to materialize from empty space. Sleek, deadly-looking craft that dwarfed the alien ships in both size and obvious technological sophistication. The hidden fleet of humanity's shadow navy revealed itself in all its terrifying glory. Thyron staggered backward, silver skin now pulsing with alarmed patterns. "Impossible. Your technology is centuries behind." "Behind what?" Dr. Park's voice came through off the speakers as he joined the broadcast from the hidden command center. "Behind the technology we allowed you to observe? High Counselor, did you really think a species that split the atom and put computers in everyone's pocket would be incapable of keeping secrets?" The displays showed more impossible sights. Hidden cities rising from ocean floors, camouflaged research stations revealing themselves throughout the solar system, weapons platforms emerging from asteroids that had been hollow shells concealing massive military installations. Colonel Zhang's scarred face appeared on screen, broadcasting from the bridge of a warship that looked like it belonged in a far-future military science fiction movie. "Every time one of your scout ships took sensor readings, we fed it exactly the data we wanted you to have. Every primitive weapon test you observed was theater designed to make you underestimate us." Thyron's musical voice cracked with disbelief. "Your quantum technology is impossible. These ships cannot exist. Your civilization lacks the theoretical framework for dimensional manipulation." President Mitchell's diplomatic mask finally slipped, revealing the predatory intelligence that had made her one of Earth's most formidable leaders. "High Counselor, did you honestly believe that the same species that went from horse-drawn carriages to spaceflight in less than a century would stop innovating just because you started watching?" The counteroffer. Oracle's voice joined the broadcast, carrying harmonics that somehow conveyed vast amusement. "Altrurian vessels are currently attempting to activate their defensive systems. I should mention that their weapon controls have been compromised by quantum viruses embedded in their own sensor networks. Fascinating technology, really. I learned it by studying their previous conquest operations." Elena watched Thyron's face as the full scope of humanity's deception became clear. The Altrurians had walked into a trap that had been set the moment their first scout ship entered the solar system. Every aspect of their infiltration had been monitored, analyzed, and countered. "This is impossible," Thyron whispered, the musical quality gone from his voice. 47 civilizations have accepted our protection. None have ever been human," General Chen said, his image appearing on the displays. "High Counselor, let me explain something about our species. We're persistence hunters. We don't give up. We don't surrender. And we really don't like being lied to." President Mitchell stepped closer to the alien, her presence somehow seeming to fill the entire assembly hall. "So here's our counteroffer, High Counselor. Your ships will leave our solar system immediately. You will abandon any plans for Earth's conquest, and you will provide us with the locations of any civilizations you currently hold captive." Thyron's silver skin flickered through patterns of confusion and fear. "You cannot make demands. We are the Altrurian Collective. We have ruled this galaxy for 3,000 years. Your species is barely capable of interplanetary flight." The displays changed again, showing technical readouts that made Elena's head spin. Weapon systems that could crack planets, shield technologies that made conventional attacks useless, propulsion systems that could cross galactic distances in days rather than centuries. "High Counselor, Mitchell said softly. Would you like to see what a species that's barely capable of interplanetary flight can do when someone threatens their home? The New Order, one of humanity's hidden warships, moved closer to an Altrurian vessel, and Elena watched sensors that could detect subatomic particles analyze the alien ship in real time. Within moments, Oracle had not only mapped every system aboard the Altrurian vessel, but had assumed control of its navigation, weapons, and life support systems. Remarkable engineering, Oracle commented conversationally, though I noticed several design flaws that could be exploited. Would you like me to demonstrate? That won't be necessary, Mitchell said, never taking her eyes off Thyron. I think the High Counselor understands our position. Elena realized she was witnessing something unprecedented in galactic history. For the first time in 3 millennia, the Altrurian collective was being outmaneuvered by a species they had planned to absorb. Thyron's 4 arms trembled as the alien struggled to process this complete reversal of expectations. Your terms are unacceptable. The collective will never— High Counselor, Colonel Zhang's voice cut through the alien's protest. You have 30 seconds to begin withdrawing your ships from Earth orbit. After that, we start demonstrating why humans spent thousands of years perfecting the art of war. Elena watched the displays show Altrurian ships throughout the solar system beginning to move away from Earth. The retreat was orderly, professional, but utterly complete. The beings who had conquered 47 civilizations were abandoning their plans for Earth without firing a single shot. This is not over, Thyron said, the alien's voice carrying harmonics of rage and humiliation. The collective has resources you cannot imagine. We will return with forces that will— President Mitchell's laughter was perhaps the most terrifying sound Elena had ever heard. Not cruel or mocking, but genuinely amused, as if the alien had just told a particularly funny joke. High Counselor, Mitchell said when her laughter subsided, I don't think you understand. We're not just letting you leave, we're coming with you. The displays showed the true scope of humanity's hidden fleet. Thousands of ships, each one carrying technology that made Altrurian vessels look like primitive toys. Battle groups that could crack planets, exploration fleets that could map entire star systems, diplomatic vessels that could negotiate from positions of overwhelming strength. You see, Mitchell continued, humanity has a problem with bullies. We really don't like them. And when we discover that someone has been bullying our potential galactic neighbors, well, we feel obligated to do something about it. Elena realized that first contact with the Altrurians wasn't ending Earth's isolation. It was beginning humanity's expansion into the galaxy as protectors of the species that couldn't protect themselves. High Counselor Thyron vanished without another word, the shimmer of the aliens' teleportation technology carrying harmonics of defeat. On displays throughout the assembly hall, Altrurian ships accelerated away from Earth at velocities that would have been impressive if human vessels weren't casually keeping pace with them. President Mitchell turned to address the stunned assembly of world leaders, her diplomatic smile returning as if nothing unusual had happened. Ladies and gentlemen, she said calmly, I believe it's time we discussed humanity's new role in galactic affairs. It seems we have quite a few civilizations to liberate. As Elena watched the displays showing human fleets moving deeper into space, she realized that the Altrurians had made a critical error in their assessment of humanity. They had seen Earth's capacity for war and assumed it made humans primitive. They had witnessed humanity's technological development and dismissed it as inadequate. They had never considered that a species capable of going from stone tools to spaceflight in mere millennia might be the most dangerous force the galaxy had ever seen. Not because humans were violent, but because they were unpredictable, innovative, and absolutely refused to give up. The age of Altrurian dominance was over. The age of human protection had begun. And in the depths of space, 47 enslaved civilizations were about to learn what it meant to have humanity as their ally.